An enormous pit and cave system called the Abyss is the only unexplored place in the world. Strange and wonderful creatures reside in its depths, and it is full of precious relics, called artifacts, that current humans are unable to make. The mysteries of the Abyss fascinate humans, and they head down to explore. The adventurers who venture into pit are known as delvers. A little orphan girl named Riko lives in the town of Orth on the edge of the Abyss. Her dream is to become a delver like her mother and solve the mysteries of the cave system. One day, Riko starts exploring the caves and discovers a robot who resembles a human boy. Tantalized by the mysteries of the Abyss, Riko and her new friend descend into uncharted territory to unlock its mysteries, but what lies in wait for them in the darkness? It is Riko's first solo excavation to the Abyss. Each red whistle is assigned to a different area, though she travels with Nat, due to their areas being next to each other. Riko becomes lost in thought after she sees a gondola transporting delvers deep into the Abyss. She is interrupted by Nat, who remarks at the unusual quietness. This angers Riko, as she thinks that Nat is implying that she's annoying. Nat clarifies, noting the lack of hammerbeaks. Riko notices this too, though Nat sees this as an opportunity to salvage hammerbeak nests, which often contain artifacts. At a depth of around 100 to 220 meters, Riko excitedly discovers a trove of artifacts. She begins collecting the artifacts, but becomes startled after unearthing a praying skeleton. Diligently, she gives a quick prayer and apologizes before continuing. Sometime later, Riko's bag is seen carrying her bag, overflowing with artifacts. Because of the bag's weight, she calls out to Nat for help. He doesn't respond. She then hears a strange noise and moves to investigate. Riko is shocked to find a crimson split jaw, a predator the third layer, about to prey upon an unconscious Nat. Riko blows her whistle, signaling for help, but the close distance allows the split jaw to close in on her. With a whip of its tail, the creature sends her flying. Although in a lot of pain, she examines that she hasn't broken any bones. Before she can fully gather herself, she is forced to continue her retreat, with the crimson split jaw in pursuit. As Riko braces herself, a bright flash of light overwhelms her. After opening her eyes, she sees the split jaw is now badly wounded, with a large hole burned into its body. The creature then plummets down into the abyss. Riko, still shocked from the events, is called upon by Nat. Now conscious, he asks if she is okay. Riko tells Nat to head back while she rests. She instead searches for the source of the light and finds a strange, glimmering blue pendant in the grass, which she then puts on. Riko then stumbles upon a strange child lying face down in the grass. As Riko checks his condition, she is shocked to find that the boy isn't human, but is seemingly artificial. Riko and Nat are then seen carrying the boy out of the abyss and into Orth. Their friend, Shiggy, appears and asks about the mysterious boy. They give him a brief explanation and continue to carrying him to Belchero Orphanage. With the help of another orphan, Kiwi, they are able to sneak the boy into the orphanage without the director, Belchero, noticing. The next day, Jirua, an instructor employed by the orphanage, acknowledges the results of yesterday's expedition and encourages the young delvers to keep working hard in the future. Belchero chimes in to warn them against keeping artifacts found in the abyss for their own possession. Riko attempts to maintain a facade of innocence as Belchero's sharp eyes glance over to her. Afterwards, Riko requests that Jirua assign her a deeper delving area, but he refuses due to her lack of experience. Nat, Shiggy, and Kiwi ask Riko about the boy they found, and she enlists them to help wake him. Later that night, the boy slowly wakes to the vague chatter of the four orphans. Using a makeshift electric chair, they jolt him back consciousness, screaming. Riko having mistakenly set the dial to 20 instead of 2. The four cheer in astonishment and Riko bombards him with questions. The boy stares blankly, wondering where he is. Riko refers to the boy as Robot Kuin and explains that he is in the city of Orth, at the top of the abyss. The boy asks his hosts if they are torturers, but he has explained that they are apprentice delvers from Belchero Orphanage. Riko interjects, asking Robot Kuin to introduce himself. He explains that he is unaware of just what and who he is, having apparently lost his memories. Shiggy quickly arrives to warn the others that their antics have caused an orphanage-wide blackout, and that Jirua is on his way to Riko's room. The children hurriedly prepare for Leader's arrival, with Riko hiding Robot Kuin under a sheet, asking him not to come out or Leader will punish them. The boy hides as Jirua admonishes Riko. She locates Robot Kuin dangling from the ceiling from extendable arms before further retreating. Jirua notices that Riko isn't paying attention and pulls her away, to receive her punishment. Robot Kuan nervously watches from the ceiling bars. The boy drops from the ceiling and contemplates to himself. He inspects himself to confirm whether he is a robot or not. He dons his helmet, and a strange emblem appears. Riko returns to her room after Jirua catches the other orphans. Riko and the boy leave the orphanage to escape punishment, and she christens him with the name Reg, the name of a dog that she once cared for. From a vantage point, Riko shows Reg the city of Orth. As the sun rises, he witnessed the grandiosity of the abyss. Late in the night, Riko's room, also known as the former punishment room, is still brightly lit. Riko is preparing tools and equipment for a trip into the abyss the next day. Afterwards, she goes to bed, but doesn't fall asleep right away, thinking about what she will do the next day and how she should convince her strict teacher, Jirua, to allow her to delve in deeper altitudes. She then thinks about her mother and how, thanks to her, she was given a chance to be Delver. She then falls asleep. Early next morning, Riko awakes and prepares herself, then quickly leaves to begin her delving trip into the abyss. As Riko begins her trip, Kiyui is at home reading a book about the abyss. A narrative begins. The narrator explains the allure of the abyss, as well as its currently known features, and how people have been exploring the Great Pit for 1,900 years since its discovery to the formation of the city by the abyss. Orth. The scene switches back to Kiyui, now soundly asleep. Nearby is Riko, having returned from her trip, sitting near a window and peering into the abyss with a telescope. Riko then spots a nest of hammerbeaks and watches as one is attacked by a sakawatari, but the rest of the hammerbeaks retaliate. Riko's excited yells catch the attention of the telescope's owner, Laffy, who is reading a letter from her husband Hablog. Riko inquires about Hablog's location and is told the Black Whistle Delver is approaching the second layer of the abyss. Laffy and Riko discuss the shared goal of Hablog and Riko to become White Whistle Delvers. They are then interrupted by Shiggy, who comes to call Riko back to Belchero Orphanage. On the way back, Riko and Shiggy continue discussing her goal of becoming a White Whistle. At the orphanage, Riko attends a briefing held by Jirua and Belchero. Afterwards, they return to the room they keep Reg hidden in and theorize about his origins, because he lost his memories. Riko recalls a lecture Jirua once gave, explaining why Delvers often fail to return from the abyss alive. When ascending from the abyss, Delvers suffer numerous symptoms known as the curse of the abyss, which are more severe in the lower depths. These afflictions range from minor sickness to certain death. There is no way to avoid the curse. In the present, Riko theorizes that Reg is immune to the curse and therefore could have originated in and climbed from the bottom of the abyss. He agrees it is possible, but has no idea why he came to the surface. Shiggy brings out a book that lists all known major artifacts, stating that there are no autonomous robots in the list. To Reg's increasing embarrassment, Riko reveals the discoveries of her experiments. He is powered by food and/or electricity. He can melt petrified trees. His skin resists stabbing and drilling. He can sweat and cry. His hair doesn't burn. His sight, hearing, and sense of smell are all better than Riko's. His arms can extend and untie themselves if tangled. He has incredible grip strength. His penis seems real rather than mechanical. Shiggy concludes that the boy is a collection of artifacts, likely one of the most valuable findings in the Abyss's history, and possibly in Obad, a treasure of the Netherworld. Riko gets excited and imagines a bright future because of the find, but Shiggy argues that they would be accused of hiding a treasure from the orphanage, which is forbidden. Even if they turned the boy in, he would be taken away and broken down into his component parts. Since the kids must all attend classes and work, there is no way they can conceal the boy. Riko bursts into tears, wanting to keep him, so Shiggy comes up with a plan. Following Shiggy's plan, Reg approaches Leader, posing as a homeless orphan who wants to become a Delver, while the kids watch anxiously from the bushes. The boy claims to have lived in the slums with his older sister and suffers from amnesia since an accident, so he cannot explain his mechanical hands. He introduces himself as Reg. Leader questions Reg about the incident in the abyss a few days ago, but Reg pretends to know nothing. Reg is accepted into the orphanage. On Shiggy's advice, Reg decides not to venture into the abyss armed with no memories, and decides to learn the ways of the Delvers. However, Reg soon finds the children are taught very little about the abyss, and instead spends most of his time doing chores, learning about life at the orphanage, and hiding the fact that he is a robot. Reg expected to get a red whistle like the others, but those are only given out just before the first descent into the abyss, so he is instead given a bell. Reg spends 2 months at the orphanage, finding it easy to adjust to life there. He is now 3 days away from his first descent. He is spending time with Kiui when Riko excitedly runs up, saying that Laffy's husband, Hablog, and his team have returned from the Abyss's second layer. She drags Reg with her, eager to ask Hablog about his trip. Many people have gathered around the Abyss to welcome Hablog's team, and Riko pushes her way to the front. Riko and Reg see Hablog handing over a white whistle and a sealed package to a man in black. Someone recognizes the whistle as Liza the Annihilators, which excites the crowd. Reg wonders about Liza's ominous title, and why only her whistle was returned. Then he notices Riko is oddly quiet. Riko reveals that Liza is her mother's name. A few days afterwards at Orth's Resurrection Festival, where a puppet show dedicated to Liza is displayed, is taking place. A narrator lists each Delver rank. He praises the White Whistles, who have made world-changing discoveries and are celebrated as great heroes. He welcomes Liza's soul home and lists her accomplishments, especially her ferocity in battle. Reg, who is working backstage with other kids from Belchero Orphanage, closely observes the festival. Nat and Shiggy explain the significance of the eternal fortune to him. Replicas of Liza's White Whistle are sold by the orphanage, but Riko is shown carrying the real one. In a flashback, Hablog gives Liza's whistle to Riko, but she is hesitant to accept it. Hablog explains that the custom is for a relative to inherit them. He suggests the option of giving the whistle to the Delver Guild HQ, but Riko chooses to keep it. Hablog adds that Liza's whistle, which was delivered by Seeker Camp sentries, was accompanied by a sealed letter that may be intended for Riko, but it must be examined first. Leader finds Riko sitting alone. He encourages her to participate in the festival, since it is in her mother's honor, and Liza was fond of them. Riko asks what type of person Liza was, admitting she can't remember her mother's face. Leader's description is unflattering, but he is clearly fond of Liza. He asks about Riko's eyes, and she says she no longer has headaches, as long as she wears her glasses. Leader reveals that Riko's eyes aren't bad, but she is suffering from the curse of the Abyss. More than 12 years ago, just after Liza became pregnant with Riko, she was ordered to obtain the unheard bell from the Abyss's 4th layer. The mission lasted over 10 months and was extremely lethal. Most of Liza's team died, including the Black Whistle Torka, Riko's father. Riko is amazed to learn that she was actually born in the Abyss, and at first mistakenly thinks she is resistant to the curse. Leader reminds her of how sick she was after her first dive. An infant resisting the ascension strain from 4th layer is unthinkable. Instead, the infant Riko was placed inside the curse warding box that Liza brought along. Liza and her strongest remaining team member carried the box to the surface, but had to abandon the unheard bell to do so. Leader stresses the value of such an artifact to make Riko realize how important her survival was to Liza. However, the box could not protect Riko completely, and her eyes were impacted by the curse. Leader asks what Riko will do about the artifact that was abandoned for her sake, which encourages her. But after she leaves, he reveals that Liza already went back and recovered the unheard bell. Leader later informs Riko that she now has permission to view Liza's sealed letter at the Delver Guild HQ. He orders Reg to accompany her. Most of Liza's letter contains profiles of creatures that are not in the official record yet. Among them is a figure that looks like Reg. Riko sees Liza's letter, mentioned by Hablog, which bears the message, "I'll be waiting at the bottom of the abyss." Liza's notes on creatures she found in the 5th layer and beyond are shown in greater detail, including the one resembling Reg. During Reg's first descent, he and Nat come across a praying skeleton. Reg, unprepared for the sight, freaks out, but Nat, amused by Reg's reaction, tells Reg about the birthday death disease, hoping to scare him further. Instead, this only increases Reg's resolve to enter the abyss and find the answers to several mysteries. Nat becomes very angry and insists that Reg and Riko are crazy for wanting to do something so dangerous. On the previous night, Riko shared the contents of Liza's letter with her friends. Riko is convinced that Liza is asking Riko to find her in the abyss, and Riko is determined to do so. Nat is firmly against Riko's plan to leave. He reminds her how dangerous it is, how unprepared she is, and she would leave them behind, namely, she would never see her friends again. Riko refuses to be swayed, and ends up fighting Nat in her frustration. Shiggy volunteers to help by obtaining more information for Riko. Reg, concerned by the tension between Riko and Nat, wonders how things will work out. After Reg's first descent ends, he is distracted because his memory didn't return as he had hoped. He completely misses that Nat is lagging behind, suffering from first layer ascension strains, until Nat vomits. As Reg has his artifacts appraised, he recognizes that the curse had no impact on him and wonders if he truly is the figure described in Liza's letter. Overcome with the desire to know more about himself, he decides he must act. That night, Riko tells her friends she will leave the following day, just before dawn. When Shiggy asks how she will enter the abyss, Reg volunteers to lower her with his extending arms and announces he will go with her, both to find his own answers and to protect her. Riko is overjoyed. Shiggy is more practical, calling their overly optimistic approach naive. He brings out the latest abyss depth chart, describing each layer and its dangers in detail. He notes that if a red whistle delver reaches the second layer, it is treated as a suicide, and search parties will not pursue them any longer. Nat tries again to talk Riko out of going, but she stubbornly refuses, until Nat finally blurts out that no one could survive for a decade in the abyss, and that Liza must be long dead. Kiyui bursts into tears while Reg tries to comfort him. Riko runs out of the room, and Nat is left feeling guilty. As Riko and Reg prepare to leave Belchero Orphanage, Reg suggests that Riko make up with Nat. She refuses, until Reg points out they will most likely never see Nat again. Riko agrees to forgive Nat if he apologizes. Shiggy will accompany the pair as far as the edge of the abyss. Reg says goodbye to Kiyui, whose birthday is near, so Reg gives him some advice on avoiding the birthday death disease. Reg then runs into Jirua, who is patrolling and already knows Riko is missing. Despite Reg's obvious nervousness at being caught, he then lets him go. Reg goes to Nat's room, but the bed is empty. Riko, Reg, and Shiggy meet up in the South District. Shiggy advises them to enter the abyss through the entry point at the wharf, which are not monitored as closely. He has already gotten someone familiar with the area to lead them, which turns out to be Nat. Nat apologizes to Riko, who instantly forgives him. She believes he has finally come around, but Nat makes it clear he is willing to help her, but is still against her leaving. Reg says they will send Nat letters, but Nat disagrees, pointing out the likelihood of mail reaching the surface from the depths is very low. Riko promises to write many letters, so that at least some will reach them. Nat explains the wharf was built by illegal delvers, and he and his late sister used to live there. He dreams of becoming a moon whistle and returning to build an orphanage there. Riko encourages his dream. The group soon reaches the edge of the abyss. Reg then notices there is a letter from Leader mixed in with their pack, but doesn't mention it yet. As the group says their goodbyes, Nat struggles to tell Riko how he really feels, but can't. They are both in tears, and Riko says they will be forever connected by the abyss. Realizing they have disturbed the residents and are drawing attention, Reg and Riko quickly descend into the abyss while Shiggy and Nat watch.